In a 1924 edition of the Brooklyn Eagle, young poet Countee Cullen infamously wrote, "I want to be a poet, not a Negro poet." In 2014, writers of African American descent still face being labeled as African American writers, not just writers.
Before the Harlem Renaissance, the movement that popularized Countee Cullen, as well as countless other African American authors, fewer well-known black artists and writers emerged from this period, despite the presence of prolific writers during this post-bellum, pre-Harlem time. For example, in New York alone, around 100 black women published books in the Reconstruction pre-Harlem era. Very few of these works, though, were successful or recognized.
For example, Frances Ellen Watkins published a number of collections of poetry on the realities of Southern life for blacks during this period, but her work is often overshadowed by Uncle Tom's Cabin, which focused on similar topics, but because it was written by the white Harriet Beecher Stowe, was more successful. A select few, like Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, Henry Ossawa Tanner, and James Weldon Johnson are household names, but their recognition was and is often for their social and political activism, not for the quality of their work. The Harlem Renaissance demonstrated a period in which art could flourish, but the success of art in the Harlem Renaissance was generally because of the race of the artist.
White perception of black art and literature during the Harlem Renaissance was generally observational. Whites saw blacks as exotic, their works interesting because it existed, but not necessarily for what it contained. For example, Charlotte Osgood Mason, who patronized black writing, didn't allow artists like Zora Neale Hurston to write about subjects Osgood didn't approve.
This shows that even the white people who were said to appreciate black art during the Harlem Renaissance still prioritized their own aesthetics over those of the artist. The wealthy white New York elite flocked to clubs like the Cotton Club to enjoy a new, different type of music that originated in black culture. However, the Cotton Club's appreciation for African American music didn't extend to the African American artists themselves. Whites who attended the Cotton Club did not engage with the artists, and the club itself did not allow for black attendance. This racial consciousness that the club demonstrated shows that the artists were not appreciated for their art, but rather observed by whites as something interesting to watch, not to engage with.
Have things changed so much in contemporary America? These days, Wikipedia is one of the most widely accessed databases on the internet. Scholars and others with knowledge in certain areas can edit articles, and anyone with internet access can read them. Almost a century after Countee Cullen wrote that he wanted to be recognized as a poet and without being modified with black, the first sentence of many black writers' Wikipedia pages still calls them African American writers, not just writers. Gwendolyn Brooks, Richard Wright, Paul Laurence Dunbar, Sonia Sanchez, and Walter Dean Meyer's Wikipedia pages identify these artists as African American writers, even though together these writers have written on a variety of topics, not just race.
White writers, however, do not face the same racial categorization. Richard Price, Ayn Rand, Jonathan Safran Foer, David Foster Wallace, John Steinbeck, Emily Dickinson, and Jack Kerouac are all described as American writers on their Wikipedia pages without any kind of racial modification. While this categorization is not incorrect, if we follow the template set by African American writers' pages, shouldn't these white authors also be classified as such? As a public domain, Wikipedia expresses how the general public feels about things in a way that other sources like print encyclopedias cannot. Each time a page classifies an African American author by their race and neglects to do the same for white authors, it reveals the greater truth that although we overlook black art and writing less frequently than in the past, we still have not come to embrace all writing for its merits and its faults, and still assume that white writers are the norm, so we must specify when a writer is not white.
Contemporary African American authors have veered away somewhat from the topic of race in their writing, making it easier to separate the book from the author. In works of fiction, many people barely bother to glance at the author picture, bio, and the back of the book. Authors who do write with themes revolving around race tend to be more controversial, and because their books raise controversial topics, the books are more likely to be known for their controversy than their merit. Walter Dean Myers, a celebrated author of children's and young adult novels, who is described on Wikipedia as an African-American author, has written works that deal with teenage experience in America, not limited to any one race, but has still won ALA awards for 4 of his most popular books spanning 5 years: Hoops, Motown and Die-Die, Fallen Angels, and Scorpion, for accurately portraying African-American youth. While some of his characters are African-American teenagers, the race of the characters is by no means the focus of the book.
James Baldwin, one of the most successful authors of the 20th century, was Black, but wrote about other topics in addition to race. However, Baldwin's books about race, like The Fire Next Time and Go Tell It on the Mountain, in addition to his essays discussing the history of race in America and the relation between race and religion, were much more successful than his other books about other topics, like Giovanni's Room, which also deals with the equality for gay men before such an idea was popular. Authors who don't write about topics as controversial tend to be well regarded and known for the quality of their work. However, the acceptance of an author's work shouldn't be contingent on their topic. Ideally, African American authors would face the same criticism and praise that white authors do, solely based on the quality of their writing.
There should be no need to clarify that certain people are African American authors. If the general public thinks that knowing John Green or Jack Kerouac are white men isn't important to my interpretation of their book, then why is it important to know the race of the other authors?